Hi and welcome to Cook with Tom. Today we're talking about knives. There's one decision, the most important decision you make when you decide on your knife. The question is, German steel, Japanese steel? We're going to talk about the differences between the two and which application is best for your style of cooking. First thing to consider when you're looking at German steel, this blade is not as hard as a traditional Japanese blade. The reason being, it goes back to warfare, believe it or not, and the technology that the steel was developed during war. Samurai swords were typically designed to be super sharp and cut through clothes, whereas German steel was traditionally meant to be really strong like bull, so that when it hit the opponent's armor, it wouldn't shatter and it wouldn't break. And so German steel tends to be a lot more tough, dense, where Japanese steel tends to be a little more delicate, but it's also sharper. So the question is, which one do I use? If you want to go something that's really robust, get a German steel knife. This is the Wüsthof Classic Icon knife I've got here. This is a German version of the chef's knife. And there's a difference I'll talk about. The way that this is made is they get a big thing of steel and then they forge it down and put a ton of pressure on it. And that's what creates this blade, which is how you see you've got this little bolster right here. That is traditionally, you won't see that on a knife that's not drop forged. You might see it on one that's stamped. So look for the bolster on your knife. That's usually a sign of really good quality as it relates to German steel. German blades are sharpened to a 22-degree edge. Because they're a little bit softer than Japanese steel, the edge needs to be sharpened a little more often. Plus, because it's a little bit softer, they can't go with the 16-degree edge like you've got on a Japanese knife. This particular knife is made by taking big sheets of steel, pounding them down to 3/1000th of an inch, and then folding them over and over and over. And that fold is what creates the strength in the steel and also makes it so you can go with a 16-degree edge. So how do you know if the knife you've got is a good quality knife? A couple of things to look for. When you're in the store, first thing you want to look for is, again, the bolster. The bolster means it's been drop forged, and so you get that nice strong blade here. It also usually means it's been heat treated, and so it's been tempered. So again, look for this little, it's called the bolster. That's that part of the knife just beyond the handle. Another thing you want to look for, especially in German knives, is metal that runs all the way through it. One continuous piece from the blade all the way up to the handle. That's called full tang, and you'll have rivets along there as well that hold the handle in place. That is a sign that they took one big piece of metal, stamped it down, and created a perfect blade. When you're looking at Japanese knives, you don't usually get the full tang. As you'll see here, it's just one little, they take the blade, they form it by folding it over, as we said, but then there's a little piece of metal that runs between here that they attach this piece here that holds the handle on. If you don't get a Japanese knife without full tang, it's not really a sign of poor quality. In fact, some of the best Japanese knives have this spike tang that runs through the middle of it, not a full tang, but there is a continuous piece of metal that runs through that. That's the most important piece when you're looking at a Japanese knife, is it'll have this that holds the knife inside the handle, indicating that you've got a full piece of metal running through your handle. Now, how do you hold the knife? This is the most important tip in your kitchen. In fact, I can't tell you how many cuts I have on my hand and other parts of my body from incorrectly using a knife. You want to take your dominant hand, if you're right-handed, use your right hand, and form a little pincher here. Take your pincher and grab just above the bolster. Take your other three fingers, wrap it around the blade. Wrap it around the handle. What that's going to do is it's going to make it so you have complete control over the knife. And if you're cutting into something, because of the pincher grip here on the edge of the knife, it's not going to twist. Otherwise, if you're holding it like this and you're cutting down, you run the risk of your blade twisting, which is just not safe. So pincher grip, grab it, and then you go and wrap your other three fingers around the handle. The other thing you want to do with your non-dominant hand is make the claw. This is the safest way to hold your food with your non-dominant hand. You're going to take all your fingers and fold them underneath. The reason you want to do that, and I'm going to show you here using this onion, is by holding your food with that with this grip, you keep your fingertips away from the edge of the knife. But you'll use this part of you'll never, ever, ever, ever lift your blade up above your hand when you're cutting using this method. You just want to use the edge of your knuckle as a guide and never lift that blade up. But what you'll do is you put your thumb behind holding it, and then you put this pincher grip. So that way, again, your fingertips stay safe. Safety is so important when you're dealing with this knife. In fact, I've got this knife here. I'm going to drop this tomato just a hair on it, and you're going to see how sharp this knife is. This thing cut right through the tomato. Can you imagine what that would do if it hit your hand? So knife safety is critically important. So let's talk about proper technique when we're using the knife. There really are 3 basic cuts you need to learn how to do, especially with the chef's knife. Again, claw, pincher grip, wrap. First thing is just the regular slice, and that's running your knife across the food. And you're just going to take it and run it across. Now, did you notice how I used the entire knife blade? I didn't just use one little part. That really is helpful, especially when you're cutting meat, because the more you go back and forth in meat especially, it creates these little waves in your food, and it just doesn't look good. So the longer the stroke you can make, the better your food is going to look. So that's the first cut, is that long stroke. The second one is called the tip and fulcrum method. This is why I like to use the German version of the chef's knife. You may have also heard this knife called a French knife. The difference between the German version and the French version, you see how the German version has got this little arch? That makes it so when you're doing the tip and fulcrum method, the tip and acting as a fulcrum coming down, tip and fulcrum, it rocks a lot easier. With the chef's knife, this is actually just a straight line and doesn't have that curve at the end, so that you don't, it makes it a little harder to use the tip and fulcrum. You don't get the rocking method, you don't get the rocking that you get by using the tip and fulcrum method with the German style of chef's knife. So now let's talk about the tip and fulcrum method. We'll hold the knife up, we'll hold the food up. This one I've already cut off the edge, which is really also important. Make sure you've got flat surfaces on your food you're working with. And all you do is put your tip on the edge of the board and just push down like that. Tip, fulcrum. In fact, I probably use that method of chopping 75% of the time. The last method of chopping is just the straight up chop. It's what you think of when you see the traditional knife. In fact, when most people come into a kitchen and have never used a knife before, that's usually the method they'll go for, is just the traditional chop. And that is just what it sounds like. Pincher, grip, claw, and that's just chopping. Those are the 3 things you're going to need to know when you're working with knives. So remember, bolster, full tang, make the decision Japanese or German, tip and fulcrum, slice, chop. If you learn that, you're going to know everything you need to know about knives. Thanks for watching. I'm Tom. This was Cook with Tom. If you have any questions, go to my website, cookwithtom.com. Become a fan on Facebook. I'm always giving out great tips on the way to improve your cooking at home. See you next time.